Brave the Wild with me, your host, Paladino Joey, or Joey Awajan. Brave the Wild is available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and Double Twist. Thank you once again for joining me today. Apologize that I didn't get this up a little sooner. Just kind of other things getting in the way, and plus I wanted to wait for Russo's bombshell to come out because, see, he had information at the beginning. It was a lot of information, and then there was the massive bombshell that came out late yesterday afternoon. So now I'm kind of fully ready to go. So, of course, I'm going to cite Michael Russo for a ton of this information, just about everything, and then my opinions are my opinions. So it's like you go with the information, and then you conduct a radio show giving your opinions on it. And, of course, talking about the future for the Minnesota Wild, the general managers that could be, one of them could be the guy, this and that. I'm sure one of the guys that have been mentioned will end up getting the job. Certain ones I would shy away from in a quick hurry, but I suppose getting an interview, seeing their vision, see how they think, this and that, isn't a bad thing. So even though they may have had recent poor history and then some rich history. Like Peter Chiarelli's about, he's been on both sides of the spectrum in huge ways. He's been on both poles, North Pole, South Pole. He's won the Stanley Cup with the Boston Bruins. He acquired Tyler Seguin in a trade and traded Tyler Seguin. So it's like, whatever. He won the Stanley Cup with Boston and, totally bleeped up the Edmonton Oilers, this and that. So crazy things can happen. You had Doug Risebrough in the past who bleeped up the Calgary Flames in the later stages, or trading away Doug Gilmour after having some success there. And, well, look what he did with Minnesota. He couldn't even draft a first rounder, much less anybody after the first round, with a few very rare exceptions. Like once in a blue moon, one draft pick would stick. How he lasted as long as he did, I have no idea. But with that said, we'll talk about the very short, tenuous tribulation, a 14-month tribulation, with now former Minnesota Wild GM Paul Fenton, as that is the theme of today. Well, you noticed the title of the episode. It took me a long time to come up with something, but I guess, again, that's where it's a good idea to wait to do the show, just to kind of gather information, build up an opinion, this and that, just to kind of really see, rather than just fly on the air, oh, Paul Fenton got fired. Wow, so what do we do now? Wow, what horrible moves. That Boteto, this, Boteto, that. You got to get more detail, more information. But then you come up with just how much information, how many details it is. The quote by Michael Russo and Dan Barrero, and ultimately in his bombshell article, death by 1,000 cuts. So there was no big smoking gun. There was no massive thing. It was a million little things that got bigger and bigger and bigger, and they just kept happening. And they just kept happening. And it was one of those type of things when somebody keeps doing the wrong thing, they just don't get it, no matter how many times they're corrected. We're talking 7 to 8 hour performance meetings with Craig Leopold, and that wasn't enough. That wasn't enough of a sign that you're going to lose your job here, brother, unless you make some type of tweaks to your strategies, your approach, the way you treat people. You got to change a little bit, and nothing changed. So for me, it's like you want to ask the question, was it the whole situation with Boteto? Was it the way he was handling Boudreau? Was it the way he was handling the media, which is a big part of things, of course, which is a source to the fans, regardless of what side of the political spectrum you might be on. Let's leave that alone. No, it ends up being all the above and a million more things. Was it this? Was it the fact he butchered the whole analytics team, just literally cut them apart and pushed them to the side and ignored every single warning they gave him about the Victor Rask trade and the idiotic decision-making when it came to Kyle Granlund and Fiala, where it could have even been more? I'm jumping ahead, but because I'm too excited to get to all this. It's like there's so many things. I know I'm going to leave something out accidentally, but it is what it is. It was all the above, and that's the title of the episode. It was all the above, because there's a million things, and it was everything. It wasn't one thing. It wasn't 10 things. It was 100,000 things, or 1,000 cuts. There you go. It was all the above. I was going to use Michael Russo's quote and just put quotes around it, death by 1,000 cuts, but it's like you got to come up with your own thing. Let the guy have his quote. Let the guy have it. It's his. And he is the godfather of Minnesota Wild media. Michael Russo, you are outstanding, and I know most of you listening know who that is, and know he is outstanding. So shall we dive in? Shall we dive into the conversation of why Paul Fenton got fired, and opinions on it, feelings? Just add to the feelings, the whole deal, as we jump into the article here and there, bits and pieces. Again, he didn't build trusting relationships with his staff, and of course, former former members that were like still part of the Chuck Fletcher regime, and even his own people. Every single time there was a small leak, just even a little leak of any kind, he automatically blamed somebody in the group because he didn't even think about his world was just so small around him. That's the big problem. That maybe it was the other side. Maybe you're talking to the Carolina Hurricanes, pardon me, football on the mind, and maybe they leaked something because Michael Russo knows people on both sides. People, sources here and there. Michael Russo or some other hockey beat writer out there leaks a story. It's automatically on our side, and he was threatening jobs, and it's the utter paranoia because maybe somebody's hurt. And oh my God, it's an ACL for Pete's sake. I think we can report it. It's the guy's job to report it. It's the guy's job to report it if Mika Koivu had an ACL. It is what it is. A pectoral injury. It is what it is. I mean, it has to come out. Regardless if Paul Fenton's going to run around screaming and cursing at people for leaking the story. It's a bleeping pectoral, and he's not going to play anymore this year. Okay, I mean, what are they going to do? Come and punch the guy in the chest because he has a pectoral injury? I mean, that's kind of silly. You don't think hockey players know that a guy's hurt in a certain place? You don't think everybody on the planet knew that Zuccarello, who was on the Stars at the time, broke his arm with a puck hitting it? You didn't see the puck hit his arm? You just got to say upper body injury? Is that ridiculous, or is it ridiculous? So I understand you want to protect your players. I understand you're old school, this and that, but that's a different kind of old school. It's not even old school. It's just paranoia, and it's crazy and stupid. So that's the media side with the whole reporting injuries, this and that. I mean, to have such paranoia. Again, it's not the kind of thing you automatically fire a general manager for. See, because that's one thing that isn't, you wouldn't fire a general manager just for that, would you? You wouldn't, because he's paranoid and weird, but he's good at trades, right? He's good at, he's really good at analyzing things, analyzing ahead before he makes a trade. But instead, no, we're talking no scouts before the Victor Rask trade. No scouts. I can't even fathom that. No scouts went ahead to look at Victor Rask before the trade was done. He left the analytics team behind when the Minnesota Wild front office went for a retreat in Florida, which is where Paul Fenton was like every day by himself. Florida, Boston, this and that, constantly leaving for weeks at a time, which confused a lot of people. But there was a retreat for the whole front office to Florida. Oh, but the analytics team, yeah, you're not invited. You can just stay behind. You just stay where you are. Just get Even though they were some of the two of the most respected analytics staff members in the NHL, just no, screw that. And didn't even acknowledge, didn't even attempt to listen to anybody's dissenting opinions on acquiring Victor Rask, despite the fact that Nino Niederreiter's current place on the team was on the fourth line, which is obviously miscast. Not only on the fourth line, but on the right side, and that is both administration's fault there, because it takes two wings to fly, like I said in the last episode, and it's like left, kind of like Minnesota politics, left. It takes two wings to fly. You got to have both. I'm sorry, some of you that might not like it, you got to have both. And just like in the hockey world, well, duh, you can't just be shooting the puck left from everybody. Oh, but he can play on the right side. He's comfortable. No, he's a bleeping left wing. Put him where he belongs. Certain times, in certain situations, maybe, okay? You can make adjustments. You can be flexible. But like half the effing team, I mean, it's ridiculous. Half the effing team has to adjust? It doesn't make any sense. It makes no sense. And again, that's Chuck Fletcher and Mr. Paul Fenton. Which, again, I was laughing at the draft because you got 4 players taken from Boston College, and basically everybody except one guy was a left shot, which is, like, hilarious. Not that we have to worry about that at the moment, but isn't that the way everybody is? Oh, we'll worry about that later when nothing gets fixed. It just doesn't. Kind of like the parking situation where I worked for the last 3 years until finally. Ugh. Sorry for going to that one. But no, I mean, it's like 2 guys in the 2 out of 12 basically were right shots, and they both were. I mean, in Eric Fair's case, he's generally a center. Cunnin, well, I mean, there were times he had to play center because Koivu got hurt. So, what do you do there? I mean, you had nobody that could shoot this position. You trade Granlund for Kevin Fiala, where your old boss there in Nashville was basically mind bleeping Fenton the whole time. Like, okay, well, I love Fiala. I don't know if I want to trade him or not. And Fenton apparently, according to multiple sources, it was less sources on this one. So Russo says, less sources on this story that wasn't written in the article. This was on the Brandon Molesky show here, which is common man, but Molesky replacing him for the day because he's out. It was that Paul Fenton was actually willing to give up more than Granlund for Fiala.
What?
Oh my God!
And basically everybody else in the organization was like, why? Why? Granlund is a 70-point player. Fiala is unproven, and, well, he's had a broken femur recently. Broken femurs don't really fare well for a guy's career, for a guy's future all the time. Hopefully it works out for Kevin Fiala, but he's been awfully skittish since that injury about 2 years ago now. And left side. And it's like, if you were going to trade Zucker, that would be the guy maybe you'd trade for. A guy who's also fast and skilled, blah, 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 but younger and cheaper. That might have made sense. Granlund, you could get more for him than Fiala. I'm sorry, Granlund's better than Zucker, by the way. Those of you that are in love with Zucker, I like him. But, again, you probably could have gotten Fiala and a draft pick for Zucker. Whereas in Paul Fenton's case, he wanted to trade Granlund and possibly cash, and it's just insane. And he didn't even understand the rules that when you're basically gonna help with the salary, that type of those type of trades, those cash type of trades, that the salary has to be equaled out over a number of years. So you're stuck with it, and it hurts your cap space. And apparently, Fenton wasn't even aware of that, and that's really weird. A general manager of an NHL team who's been in an organization since 1998, Nashville Predators, that's 21 years ago. And he didn't know that. So, interesting. That's really weird. But, well, okay. So, at least it was Granlund for Fiala, and we didn't have all that extra crap. It was just a straight-up trade. It was a hockey trade. It was genius. He fleeced his old boss there. Oh, because Granlund just sucks. And Fiala is the next Mario Lemieux. He is. Well, his stick handling is smooth. It's beautiful. There's a flash to the guy, but he barely did anything out there. And he's skittish as a little cat. I mean, he's like a little kitty out there on the ice so far. He's so skittish. And I don't know. I don't know, man. And it's like, where do you go with all this? There's so many things in this Fenton situation that this might sound unorganized and a mess, but, well, there's too many things to talk about. There's no way to make it organized. It's impossible because there's a quadrillion things. A lot of other interesting red flags that came up when a lot of us were thinking, that made our antennas go up, was the fact that when you hear Michael Russo saying that Leopold's antenna's up, and that mysteriously, why would this happen? He was sitting right next to Paul Fenton during the draft the entire time. That's kind of weird, particularly on the first day, because he wanted to really be involved here, because he wanted to make sure that people were being listened to, this and that. Interesting situation there. And it's like, now you see why Leopold made the move so quickly, because enough was enough. This is a BS. And Leopold was probably going to fire him earlier. He was thinking about it, and he's like, he just kept going back and forth. Hopefully he's going to listen. Hopefully he's going to improve. And it just didn't happen. David Poyle, by the way, was that general manager of the Nashville Predators that probably has fleeced Mr. Paul Fenton. But we'll see. Fiala still has a chance. And, of course, Granlund so far didn't do jack squat in Nashville either, which is kind of surprising. But sometimes if things don't fit whatsoever. So, interesting antenna right there. Those were the early signs that this really could end very quickly. Obviously, the end season press conference was ridiculous. It was horrible. It's one thing when a coach and GM, they're serious, they're professional, and they might not be all smiley and eye contact the whole time. But when there was absolutely no eye contact between Fenton and Bruce Boudreau, that was a red flag. And I think everybody knew these guys weren't on the same page the entire time. It's obvious, especially with all the effing trades that took place during the season that didn't make a whole lot of sense. Some kind of did. The Coyle for Donato one kind of makes sense, but you probably could have gotten more. So that's the one that's still frustrating. You probably still could have gotten more, but it's okay, I guess. That type of trade, it's just okay. But the other moves, like getting Victor Rask, and when Bruce Boudreau put Victor Rask in the shootout and he looked like a fool, and then Bruce Boudreau, after the game, said, there's a reason I put Victor Rask out there. Partially, you're thinking, okay, he's sending a message to the other guys. Like, he's, you guys aren't playing well, so I'm going to put this guy out there. But I think there was a little bit darker message mixed into all that. I do think he was annoyed with some of the players on the team not playing well at the time, but I think there was a little more of a message there. Well, you traded for this clown. Here he is. Let's see what he's got. Oh, he missed. What a surprise. How quaint. How quaint. He looked like an absolute fool out there. He looked like, he just looked bad. That's all. It just kind of left you thinking, I think he is sending a message. And I wouldn't be surprised if at that moment, that may have been one of the times when Paul Fenton went to Leopold about firing Boudreau. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened that night, actually. That's just my guess. Me personally, Joey Owygen, host of Brave the Wild, that was one of those occasions. And Leopold, luckily for Boudreau and for a lot of us that are Boudreau fans, myself included, Leopold quickly said, no, you can't. I mean, it's just not the time to fire the coach here. It's not time. So it's like you're more at fault than he is at this case, at this stage. So early indications there as well. What a mess. What an absolute mess. It's like, again, where do you go? I mean, Victor has 3 points in 21 games, 2 goals and 1 assist. Oh, boy. I think one of his goals was off someone's skate, if I remember correctly, which is insane. Oh, boy. I'm exhausted. I'm already tired. Can you believe that? It's crazy. His treatment of Brent Flair wasn't good. He basically put him down to, like, the bottom. He basically turned him into a scout. Brent Flair, VP of Hockey Operations, was basically relegated to scout status. But, he better be up there, though, when the Wild drafted the young man, Philip Johansson. He's up there. You could see there's no smile on the guy's face. Paul Fenton had a nice smile ear to ear. And then Brent Flair was just like, yeah, okay, I'm here for now. That type of look. And off he went to go join Fletcher in Philly, which that'll lead to a Ron Hextall conversation later. What a weird situation, though. I mean, the craziest part about the whole front office situation, it's not just that he removed people. And it's like, okay, sometimes you want your own guys who support your vision. But the fact that just about everybody in the organization was like, what is the vision? Are we winning now? Are we winning later? Are we just creating cap space? There is no true vision here. You look like maybe we're clearing up space and getting younger, and then you re-sign Mr. Stahl, which wasn't the worst contract ever, but it was a no move. You then bring in Matt Zuccarello for about $6 million a year with a no move for 5 bleeping years, and he's 32 years old, or turning 32. So, again, you're freeing up cap space to sign an older guy. You're freeing up cap space to get younger to sign an older guy. Okay. So, again, I don't know, man. The ultimate one, though, I think, for me personally, which raised my antenna, is you always want to come in with a positive vibe. You always want to go take the high road and wish the best. You always want to wish the best as a fan and as somebody covering the team in a podcasting mode, I guess is what you could say what I'm doing, kind of like a audio blog or whatever. I'd rather call it podcast. I don't even like the word blog. It sounds like you're just doing it for the hell of it, which I think, I don't know, I'm doing it because I love it more than just for the hell of it. And I'd like it to be a career someday. The drafting of Matthew Boldy was good. That's good. Cool. The draft seemed cool, but then it got weird with the everybody's from Boston College, which is really strange. 5 players from Boston College in 2 years, 4 of them this year. 4 players are in Boston College this year. I've never heard of that before. I've never seen that happen, and it's very suspicious when you see a guy hails from Boston, Massachusetts. Your general manager hails from Boston, Massachusetts, taking guys from, Boston this, Boston that. It was literally, I mean, what is this, Gyromite? Rob the Robot, where it's either Gyromite or Stack Up for the old NES. So Gyromite would be Boston, and Stack Up would be Nashville. Stack Up. It could only play those 2 games. That Rob the Robot for the NES many, many years ago was invented for only 2 games, and it's like it only plays 2. It only works with 2 games, and it's like Rob the Robot is Paul Fenton. I mean, Boston, Nashville. Okay. Let's change it up here. Boston. Okay, no. I mean something else. Nashville. Oh my God. So it was either a Nashville Predator or some tie to the Nashville Predators. He got drafted by the Predators and wound up somewhere else or something like that. Or he took a cup of coffee with the Predators. Fenton wants him, basically one way or another, unless he flat out hated the guy, which is almost never. Or he has some ties to Boston, this, Boston, that. It's the strangest, most doggone thing I've ever seen in my life. I've never seen anything, Tom Thibodeau was really bad like that with the Chicago Bulls, where people thought he was the Timber Bulls, basically. It's the Timber Bulls, not the Timberwolves anymore. It's the Timber Bulls. Tom Thibodeau, the former Bulls coach, who, was the Paul Fenton of the Timberwolves the last 3 years. He lasted 3.5 years. Yeah, he was the Paul Fenton of that organization. But no, I mean, that was where things got really strange. Really strange, among 9 million other things. The Spurgeon situation, you don't get ahead of the contract situation. He's a free agent at the end of the season. Why in the flying bleep you don't, get on with that one? And they didn't, and Paul Fenton didn't, and he saw no reason to do that. And then now you got Trouba signing for a massive contract, about $8 million for 7 years. $8 million per for 7 years. Trouba's not as good as Spurgeon, and he's getting a lot more than Spurgeon right now, about just under 5.2 in his final year with the Minnesota Wild at this stage. So you could have maybe got Spurgeon for 6.5, maybe 7, something like that for 4 or 5 years. Now you're probably looking at 8+, and he's so disenfranchised with your franchise, pardon the pun there, that he's asking the general manager, I want to hear your vision first before I really get serious about signing a long-term deal with you guys. Wow. Jared Spurgeon, that's a pretty pointed comment. As kind of subtle as it might seem, that's extremely pointed. And it just makes you wonder. And again, that's why Phil Kessel didn't want to come here. He didn't see any vision of winning here. He had no desire to come. And at the draft, Michael Russo said, he had countless people coming up to him asking, what is going on in Minnesota? What is going on with Paul Fenton? Just all the million different weird flames that were popping up here, and there little fires that had to be put out. Again, like him not being around for X amount of time. He was in Florida, he was in Boston, he's in Florida, or Cape Cod, which is the Boston, blah, blah, blah area. Florida, Cape Cod. And people were like, why isn't he even here? Right in March, when it's a crucial point of the season, you're trying to make the penalty, and he's gone for 3 weeks? That don't make sense, Joe. I don't know. Even the Greg Pattern signing, 2.25 for Greg Bleepin Pattern, who's single-digit points, physical, mediocre defense, low IQ, 2.25. I'd rather have Nick Steeler any day, at the same salary, and we're paying him $7.25, which probably is all Pattern should be getting. Steeler's not a great player, but he's very valuable, and his IQ is higher than Greg Pattern's. And I think he provides more than Greg Pattern. I think he does, and he's 3 years younger. Brad Hunt provides more than Greg Pattern. He's just small, but I love Brad Hunt. Everybody loves him. Thank God. That was pure luck that we got him. Pure luck. But that's the other thing again. Now we get to go to the creme de la creme here of the whole strange moves, I think, during the season. As awful and weird as the Victor Rask trade was, as weird as the situation was with Fiala and Granlund, and, of course, Donato and Quayle. Okay, that's the good one, kind of. Now we get to the weirdest of all. You sign Brett Hunt. Good move, I think. It's like take a flyer on the guy. Everybody loves him everywhere he goes. He's the coolest dude ever, including up in Bemidji State. I had people on Twitter talking to me of all people, which is really a nice compliment to me about Brad Hunt. What an awesome guy he was up there. They knew him and they loved him. Just one of those magnets in the room. Everybody loves Brad Hunt. And thank God when you lose Prosser ultimately because of more poor moves, which is this is like a big giant spider web of moves because of an acquisition you made right after you got Brad Hunt from the Vegas Golden Knights. The Nashville Predators put a certain guy on waivers, a guy whose name rhymes with Geppetto, a guy from New York, one of the coolest dudes. People actually liked him in the locker room as well. Cool dude, but his hockey IQ sucks. His hockey IQ sucks. His skills are below average. His defense isn't even that good. That's maybe his best trait, and it better be. He's a freaking defenseman. and he wasn't that good at that either. You claim him off waivers, right as Nick Steeler literally just was bloodletting on the ice, playing his ass off, blocking shots against the Buffalo Sabres, helping the Wild win and keeping them looking closer to making the postseason. Heck, we were ninth in the NHL, not ninth in the West, and ninth in the NHL. The guy's bloodletting out there is Nick Steeler. So you bring in a guy in Anthony Boteto. Again, God bless him, a better guy than what the ripping he's deserved in the by all of us, including myself, because he just can't play. I mean, you can be the greatest guy ever, but you can't play. He's brought in, and basically Fenton, in his own way, somehow, some way, demands Boudreau puts Boteto in the lineup, which then you bury Brad Hunt, basically, or you put him on the right side, which is okay, even though he's a left shot. He can kind of do it. Or at times, otherwise, Brad Hunt is basically buried and he's invisible forever after a couple of good games right when he started. You bring in Boteto, so yeah, Brad Hunt, go back and sit down. Oh, and you, Nick Steeler, as well. Now you have 8 defensemen, by the way. So both Brad Hunt and Steeler, 2 major positives, get sat down. Prosser's forced to the AHL along with JT Brown. I'm not sad about JT Brown getting down, but I was annoyed with Prosser getting sent down a little bit. I think the team was more annoyed than anybody else. But I suppose Brad Hunt can help replace him a bit. But again, Boteto, the poor hockey IQ, the weak defense, and 0 offense whatsoever. He never scored a point. Never scored a point in the amount of time he was out there. And at times it was remarkable how much time he was out there. Steelers completely mind bleeped after this, and he was never the same the rest of the season because he's like, I've earned this position, and now you're playing this guy who's probably half as good as me. And again, low IQ. It just mind bleeped everything. And then you had Cunnin and Eck, who'd been playing very well for the Wild after some good time in the AHL, send down when Cunnin needed to get healed up a bit during the break. Instead of being able to rest and he had to cancel his plans along with Gak during the break, the All-Star break, and they're forced to play in the AHL, and they're stuck down there because there's too many players on the roster and that you can't move. You can't move them; they're stuck, and you're screwed. And Potato's forced into the lineup, and again, poor hockey IQ. He cost us a game or two, or at least he sent things in motion to cost a game or two. God bless him, but it's what happened, and it just led one thing to the next. And to me, that was the creme de la creme of all the weird, crazy, stupid moves of the year. All for a guy you just had to claim him off waivers. You know what I would have done with Anthony Boteto if I was Paul Fenton? You claim him and send him to the AHL. That's what you do. Send him to the AHL. And if he's okay, so be it. But if he's such a good locker room guy, he's perfect for the AHL. Why force him into the lineup and mess everything up? That's the guy you should have just sent to the AHL, but nope, you just had to force him into the National Hockey League lineup and completely F everything up. The other move, Pontus Aberg, Justin Kloos. Well, Kloos was a good soldier in the AHL. He was doing a great job, and people were saying he was going to have a hard time making the NHL because he's a scorer type, but there's just no job for him with the Wild right now. There's just no openings, so to speak. So you trade him away, which is okay, whatever, but for Pontus Aberg, who, well, he was the second leading goal scorer in Anaheim, but poor hockey IQ again for the 99th time now, and lazy, very lazy. Every single optional skate, he'd opt out. It's like if there's an option to not come, he won't come. And wow, crazy. Pontus Aberg fell out of favor pretty quickly, and luckily he's gone now, thank God, as he was eligible for arbitration, and that was declined, thankfully. Oh, boy. Ryan Murphy and Kapla, whatever. One AHL for another AHL. I kind of like Kapla. That was not too bad. I'm getting a 7th-round pick for Matt Hendricks. Not the dumbest move I've ever seen. No, not at all. So not everything he did was the worst thing I've ever seen. Gordiev, I have no idea what to say with that. That's, he's been in the AHL so far. Gordiev, big physical stay-at-home type defenseman for a 7th-rounder to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I'm not sure where to go with that one at the moment. It's a very odd situation. One thing that I will say in favor of Paul Fenton that I think was a good thing, There was one thing that he did that I really liked, that Chuck Fletcher seemed to ignore forever. What do you think it was? And what do I always seem to talk about in the later stages of the show? I talk about the AHL and the prospects and this and that, right? It seemed like Fletcher would always kind of ignore it, kind of, sort of, and guys that were, ready to go pro just went straight to the NHL right away. Where Paul Fenton's approach was let them develop in the AHL for a couple months or maybe a whole season, this and that. See, the only guys that ever seemed to get sent to the AHL were guys that, he wasn't cracking it at all in the NHL. Like he had to be in the AHL because he didn't have a chance. Where guys like Eriksson Ek, who maybe, they could play in the NHL, but not at a high level. You send him down to the AHL and he's a point-a-game guy. His confidence comes up. He comes back to the NHL and he's maybe a half-point-a-game guy. That's a big difference. That's a big improvement from like a guy maybe a point every 20 games, this and that, which is where Eriksson Ek was for the longest time. So that I appreciated, along with Luke Cunnin building some confidence and, of course, healing up from that ACL injury. God blessed him there. So that I did appreciate, how both Cunnin and Ek spent a significant time in the AHL. Now, after they had improved and were sent down, that's where the annoyance came in. Major annoyance, in my point of view. And I understand that. It was a roster. It was a bleeped-up roster, and that whole Potato situation caused a tornado. Man, it was like a Tasmanian devil type of situation there. So that's where it kind of left you hanging and wondering, what the hell is the vision of this team? And there really wasn't any. The bottom line, there really wasn't any. Like, what was the number one reason Paul Fenton was fired? All the above. That's what it was. Death by 1,000 cuts and all the above. This and that. So Michael Russo, death by 1,000 cuts. Paladino Joey, all the above. That's basically the title of everything here. Basically the title of the Paul Fenton general manager regime the last 14 months. With that said, again, the AHL, I liked how he was handling that. I hope the next GM is closer to that vision, so to speak, guys developing in the AHL. That's the only hint of a vision you may have had, is guys developing in the AHL. The other good news is Pontus Aberg is long gone, and I don't know where he is now. But I do know where Anthony Potato is. He has signed a contract with the Winnipeg Jets organization. I'm guessing he will wind up with the AHL team, more than likely. Or maybe he'll get a cup of coffee here and there, a call up here and there when need be injuries, or maybe he's doing a really good job in the AHL and they want to give him a chance. This and that. I don't know. That's a nervous chuckle there, if you could kind of tell. Potato doing a good job and give him a chance. Oh, God bless you, Potato. I've heard a lot of good things about you as a person, but as a player, I saw not good things. It wasn't good. It wasn't good in the NHL. No, I do hope the new general manager, whether it's Tom Fitzgerald, Bill Guerin, or others that I'm going to talk about here in a moment, will be closer to the AHL side of things than absolutely no AHL, hardly at all, except a guy he's not anywhere near the NHL. So AHL or bust for him. This and that, which is what the situation was with Fletcher for the longest time. And, of course, trading away third-round picks for guys that are fourth-line players and, seventh defensemen, that type of bullshit. So, pardon my French. So, let's get to the list, and let's screw around here. Who is going to be the new general manager of the Minnesota Wild? And, again, I apologize if I left anything out. There's a huge chance I did. And if it comes to me as before I'm moving on here, we'll get to that in a moment. There are so many. Oh, my God. I just want to keep moving around thinking about things, this and that. I did talk about the whole AHL situation. Again, remember when Anderson was let go and Fenton brought in Dean Evison, who a lot of people thought was going to, unseat Boudreau in a year or so. Well, he doesn't have to worry about that at the moment. But Anderson, yeah, that was sad what they did to him. He did a pretty good job in his 2 years with Minnesota. So I don't know. I think he did a pretty good job with that power play. A lot better than the Mike Yeo era, I'd have to say. So again, the list of names, this and that. You got your Ron Hextall. I'm going to mention him first. I'm going to talk about him now, right now, here and now. Ron Hextall, well, they're saying he has a lot of the same kind of paranoia, close to the vest bullcrap that Paul Fenton had. Kind of gruff, kind of tough, this and that. Not the dumbest general manager ever, but not the best either. I would say he's extremely conservative. There are very few trades made, which isn't always a bad thing, but sometimes it is a bad thing. He was there about 4.5 years with the Philadelphia Flyers, and he was pretty conservative, I'd have to say. Chris Pronger, yeah, boy, he was still playing in 2015. Oof, he was moved away. Philadelphia Flyers acquired Sam Gagner. Not the worst trade ever. That was during that time. Vincent Lecavalier, who was completely past his prime. Moves like that. But nothing really stands out like, wow, what a genius move, this and that. Filipula wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad of an acquisition, I'd have to say. But he was only there for like a year, and he didn't do that well either. He did better with Tampa Bay and Detroit in the past. He was already, again, another guy who was a bit past his prime. One that bugs me a little bit, Braden Shen, traded away. Obviously, major success with St. Louis and a Stanley Cup title for him. Good for him in a huge way. This guy named Yori Laterra didn't do anything, basically. He was decent with St. Louis, kind of third-line-ish type of guy. Comes to Philadelphia in single-digit points. Absolutely pathetic. But a couple of first-round picks, though, to go with Braden Shen. So that's the good part, at least, in that type of thing. Ron Hextall would not be my choice. There's a reason why he got fired and replaced by Chuck Fletcher. I mean, he wasn't that good. And, of course, again, I mean, what condition was Philadelphia in when Ron Hextall was removed from office, so to speak, relieved of his duties? Were they in good shape, or was it like, scorched earth? Was it a scorched earth situation? I think it was scorched earth. They had like zero goaltenders, basically. Just a complete disaster. And what is what was Ron Hextall? A goalie, and they had no goalie. It didn't make any sense. So I don't know what to tell you about that. I don't think I want Ron Hextall. I think you're getting more of the same at the end of the day. Peter Chiarelli, major success with Boston. Again, he did acquire, to his credit, as you want to talk about him trading away Tyler Seguin, he acquired Tyler Seguin in a trade earlier to the Boston Bruins. So give him some credit there. He acquired Tyler Seguin. Isn't that funny? And then he traded him to the Dallas Stars. So, okay, years later, before he was ultimately let go in 2015. He took over the Boston Bruins in 2006. Boston, very successful during that time. And, of course, Milan Lucic, for the longest time, he was obsessed with that guy. Just married to him. And then the new GM traded him right away to the Kings, and ultimately wound up with Edmonton because Peter Chiarelli just had to have him and signed him to a very long contract. But Chiarelli made some decent moves. He acquired Dougie Hamilton as well during the course of time. Decent player. I do believe he orchestrated the Phillips and Jared Knight trade. Zach Phillips and Jared Knight with the Minnesota Wild. 2-0 players that were first-round picks, or early second-round in Jared Knight's case. Wound up with Minnesota. It was a whole lot of crap. The trade that really hurt Chiarelli, though, Tyler Seguin and Rich Beverly and Ryan Budden, but really Tyler Seguin. Let's leave Ryan Budden out of it. For Louis Eriksson, who is just an okay player. I mean, he had his success. He had his runs here and there, but he was not as good as Tyler Seguin, man. I mean, what are you doing here? That's ridiculous. Joe Morrow, Riley Smith, and Matt Frazier. Bad trade. And that ended up ultimately leading in the wrong direction in time. What a mess, man. What an absolute mess. Jaromir Jagr, that was an interesting move. It was cool having him on there. They went back to the Stanley Cup final again. That was again during Peter Chiarelli's reign. So 2 Stanley Cup finals, 1 championship, 1 loss to the Blackhawks in Jaromir Jagr's year. They lost in 6 games, and they won in 7 versus the Vancouver Canucks. Another trade with Minnesota in Chiarelli's case. Steven Kampfer, I thought the Wild got the better player there, but maybe Boston did. Greg Zanin. Kampfer wound up with Boston again not too long after that. He even had Benoit Pouliot moved to the Tampa Bay Lightning in 2012, did Chiarelli. Anton Khudobin, another one who wound up getting a Stanley Cup with Boston, coming from Minnesota for guys named Jeff Penner and Mikko Lehtinen, who never suited up for the Wild that I remember. I don't think they did. So some notable moves here and there, interesting, but he's kind of an all or nothing general manager. He's either making really good moves and leading his team to the right place, or he's the worst ever and his team's in last place. I want to win a Stanley Cup, but I don't want to be at the doldrums and making stupid trades like Adam Hall and such. Adam Hall for Larson. That was ridiculous. I almost said Johan Larson, but that was a Minnesota Wild player that was traded. Bad move, man. I mean, that was a bad move with Edmonton just recently, along with many others. Adam Hall, though, for Larson. A mediocre, slightly above average stay-at-home defenseman for Adam Hall, who was like a franchise scorer. Oh, boy. that one hurts. Getting rid of Neil Yakupov is one thing, but you drafted Nail, not Yakupov. You drafted him, so that's on you, Shirley, again, as far as I'm concerned. Neil Yakupov, number 1 overall. Oh, no, he didn't. He didn't draft him. Pardon me, my bad. That was the previous general manager. That was a long time ago, 2012, so at least you got rid of him and wound up with a 3rd-round pick for him, so okay. My bad. I apologize. Justin Fontaine, former Wild player, was traded at one point. But yeah, the Adam Hall trade is something that's really blemished on the guy's record. That was a bad one. Oof. That was a bad one. Taylor Hall for Adam Larson. Yep. Taylor Hall for Adam Larson. I hope I didn't say Adam Hall. I might have, because I got the two mixed together there. Adam Larson, Taylor Hall. Yes, Taylor Hall, a franchise winger who can score up the yin-yang for a mediocre defenseman. Adam Larson is basically he's like a glorified Nick Schultz for somebody the Wild have never had, we'll say. So the Wild have never had an Adam Hall. As good as Gaborik was in his best days, they never had an Adam Hall. I mean, a 93-point guy. How many times did Marian Gaborik score 93 points? Never. He eclipsed the 80 mark twice, one with Minnesota, one with the New York Rangers. So, I don't know. Taylor Hall, I just called him Adam Hall again. Taylor Hall took a little while to get better, but he got better. And he really got better with the New Jersey Devils after he left the Oilers organization with Peter Chiarelli in charge. I don't think I want either of the guys, but it's not the worst thing ever to at least talk to a man who won a Stanley Cup as a general manager. So I'm not against that. The guy who finished 2nd place, Tom Fitzgerald, I think he deserves a very strong look, and I hope Minnesota does get permission to talk to him and does talk to him. Tom Fitzgerald, absolutely former player, this and that, and he's got a lot of positive energy, this and that. I think he would jumpstart the organization and move things in a better direction. I can imagine him being much more pro analytics and all that, and get this team moving forward rather than backward, which is what Paul Fenton did. The former Los Angeles Kings president and general manager, multiple Stanley Cups with the Los Angeles Kings, and a guy that was endorsed by Lou Nanne as the next GM of the Wild, but he believes the Wild won't even get him. They won't even try, basically, this and that, or he won't listen. He was a candidate years ago to come to Minnesota as well. Dean Lombardi, and I would totally be on board with that. Fitzgerald and Lombardi are two guys I would strongly support in a big way. Dean Lombardi up multiple Stanley Cups with the Los Angeles Kings. He put together one heck of a juggernaut there. One good player after another, the Kopitars and this and that. I mean, you could just go on and on with all the wonderful players and smart players as well. Acquiring Justin Williams along the way, helping them lead themselves and helping lead the locker room, this and that. Then you had guys like former Minnesota Wild stalwart defenseman Willie Mitchell. Man, that guy was an integral piece to multiple Stanley Cups with Los Angeles Kings as well. I would love Dean Lombardi. Would he have the same success rate here? I don't know, but we have to hope. Former Toronto GM and longtime NHL executive Dave Nunnes. That's another possibility out there. He's had his moments. I'm not sure. Columbus Blue Jackets executive Bill Zito. That's a name. I mean, I like the way Columbus has put things together the last couple of years. Unfortunately, they lost some valuable players, though, this past year. Bobrovsky, too big of a contract with Florida, so I don't think they're too down about that. And, of course, Panarin off to the New York Rangers. So that kind of is what it is. But I like what the Blue Jackets have done the last 5 years or so. I think they did a wonderful job, to be quite honest, and including the hiring of a guy who was a little bit short-tempered with everybody for the last, decade or so. But that's that Tortorella there. Oh, John Tortorella. Whew, that guy could curse with the best of them. But, no, they did a hell of a job. I'm very impressed with what the Blue Jackets accomplished the past couple of years. Big time. Atkins and all those players. Bill Guerin, of course, works for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I believe he's assistant GM, this and that. Wouldn't be a bad addition, but for me, Tom Fitzgerald or Lombardi are my top two choices. The other major one, though, and I mean major, this could be super lucky, like when the Anaheim Ducks suddenly fired Boudreau, just all out of nowhere because, they had a poor start to the season. Then they got really good and still won the division and then lost in the first round. And then they fired Boudreau. And I'm like, get him. And the Wild got Boudreau. And I was just, oh my God, I was so excited. Well, Mr. Waddell there, general manager of a certain team that jumped up hugely this year because of all the wonderful additions they made the last couple of years, the Carolina Hurricanes. Waddell, the general manager of the Carolina Hurricanes, get him! He's a free agent. His contract is up. He's a free agent. Anybody can talk to him right now because he's nobody's property, even though he's still working for Carolina, but he's not under contract. Get him! Get him! That would be really exciting if the Wild could get him. Those are my big top three, and I think Waddell is my choice at the end of the day for what an amazing job he's done. You can, Chuck Fletcher missed on Aho. He missed on this guy. He missed on that guy. Carolina made some unbelievable moves. I loved what they did the last couple of years. It took a little while, but then whammo. I mean, they did a hell of a job, got to the East Finals. Unfortunately, ran into a buzzsaw called the Boston Bruins. But Waddell, Dean Lombardi, or Tom Fitzgerald, I would be very happy if it's one of those three. Not so happy if it's any of the others. And if it's Ron Hextall, I think I'd be quite disappointed. I think you're bringing in an improvement over Fenton, but that's it. That's all. He's just a little better. Like, he might make sense. His moves are a little bit more savvy. He's a little more intelligent, so to speak. And he's done it before, which doesn't always mean anything. If you did it, that's one thing. But if you sucked at doing it, well, what good is that? It's experience, but you sucked at it. So that would be my fear. I don't think Hextall sucked necessarily, but I don't like the way Philadelphia, I don't like the shape that team was in when he was let go. Again, I mean, Chuck Fletcher was just GM of the Philadelphia Flyers right now for a reason, because Ron Hextall was canned. And he was canned for a reason. Again, I just keep saying it. So I don't want Ron Hextall. Look at the Edmonton Oilers. Look at the Edmonton Oilers. I don't want Peter Chiarelli either. Even though he accomplished certain things in the past, that doesn't mean he's going to accomplish them now. I don't know. I mean, in Boston, do you hear that little... You hear my fingers rubbing? There's a little bit more money in Boston, okay? There's a little bit more going on over there. I don't know. But, I mean, the salary cap is the salary cap, but still, it's a more exciting place, I think, for certain people, though there's more pressure for certain people as well. Minnesota is a very attractive place to play hockey, though I shouldn't go there. This isn't the NBA, so I better shut up on that one. Minnesota is a lot more attractive than, like, say, the Minnesota Timberwolves are in the NBA. It's a much more attractive place for free agents, but still, Boston just went to the Stanley Cup Finals again, and they've been in the mix forever. That's why certain guys might want to go there. That's why, and Minnesota has struggled for a while. So we're a little bit less attractive at the moment for potential free agents, this and that. So we need some damn good general managing the next 3 to 4 years here to get things really going in the right direction again. Hopefully sooner than later. And, of course, certain guys being able to do their job in a proper way without basically having their tongue cut out or their fingers cut off, or whatever the hell it is, which what Paul Fenton was doing the last 14 months. And, of course, Fletcher, I don't think, did a good job building the AHL and utilizing the AHL because it has a very strong value. Guys learn a lot of the core values of professional hockey down in the AHL, and I think that was the one thing Paul Fenton was pretty good at the end of the day. So I'll kind of sort of wrap the show with that. Look, again, I'm going to look at the Facebook page really quick. I don't think there's nothing on Twitter, unfortunately, other than retweets. I want to thank Vince Germano, who retweets the show. Thank you very much. At Vinrock44. Thank you so much for retweeting the show out of Australia, of all places. Again, which is, and then you had Benny Allen. I'm just saying because there's not a whole lot of hockey fans in Australia, but there are some. And Benny Allen's also an Australian. He's a great guy as well. Vince Germano. More of a hoops guy, but he's supportive and he loves following my shows, and I love following his shows as well. The Courtside Podcast, if you like basketball out there, hockey fans that like sports, like all sports, you want to talk about some basketball as well, which I encourage. I don't see any reason not to. Keep wanting to get to the Facebook page. At Brave the Wild is the Twitter. The Facebook page is facebook.com/bravethewild.minnesota, or just look up Brave the Wild /Minnesota Wild Show, or dash, or whatever. I believe I had a comment from Michael Holzer, an old friend in this town here in the Twin Cities, after I'd announced the firing of Paul Fenton. Well, I didn't announce it. I passed on the information. Lots of likes and such. There were a couple comments here, and it's taking 3 hours to load like it usually wants to for some unknown reason, because Facebook sucks. Okay. Michael Holzer says, not a shock. He made poor choices. Yes, he did. Yes, he did. I thought there says 3 comments. I only see 2. But I was saying I had a feeling he would be gone for next season. This was surprising so late in the summer. That's my view. But no, I mean, it's absolutely absolutely something there. Chris Clark or Janelle Clark. Okay, but there's nothing there. I don't know if you put a picture that didn't load or a meme or something. I got to also mention the Wild did re-sign Ryan Donato to a 2-year deal. Only it's a pretty cheap contract too. I have the list up here as well. $3.8 million, 1.9 annual value. Again, that's really good. They also signed Sturm and Soucy on 2-way deals, so they come back. I believe Soucy's only a one-year deal though. So again, he'll be back in the free agent market again. But yeah, Donato, very cheap contract, $1.9 million, and then he's eligible for arbitration, restricted free agency 21-22. So again, the summer of 21, are eligible for arbitration. He has the exact same contract as Ryan Hartman. That is not bad. That deserves a little applause. That's not bad. But I mean, I know Ryan Donato didn't exactly turn heads that much. He had some nice moments, and then he quieted down after that. Mats Zuccarello, a great guy. Everybody loves him, but $6 million a year with a no-move clause, that's the worst part. He is here until the summer of 2024. Ladies and gentlemen, and again, Jared Spurgeon. The wheels are not turning for Spurgeon right now, and again, 5.2 basically, slightly under, 13,000 less than that. Unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. Oh. Matt Dumba doesn't even have a no-move clause, and he's better than Zuccarello. God almighty. What the hell was that? You know? Oh, that bugs me. Nico Sturm, yep, same thing. Only 1 year, restricted free agent at the end of the season. Not eligible for arbitration. Luke Johnson was one of the acquisitions. He is eligible for arbitration. Pardon me. Ivan Lodny has got 3 more years, which that's good, I guess. Dmitry Sokolov, 2 more years. Mason Shaw, who's going to recover from another ACL injury. Number 3, 2 years. Will Biden, 2 years. Yep, he was re-signed earlier. Connor Dewar, 3-year entry-level contract. Very happy about that. Alexander Kovanov, 3-year entry-level contract. Nico Sturm, only 1 year, like I said. Restricted free agents will be Luke Cunningham and Jordan Greenway after next season as well. Very interesting. And also of note, another guy who is currently a restricted free agent, well, a couple of them, major people actually, to be quite honest. Matt Robson's also going to have a very strange deal here. It's like a big 10.2 question mark. So we'll click on the highlight here, and it says, this player, now this information courtesy of Cap Friendly, this player has not accrued the necessary amount of professional seasons required for Group 2 restricted free agent status. They are ineligible for an offer sheet. Yeah, so very, very interesting there. Very interesting. Capo Kakkonen, a restricted free agent after the season. A couple of guys here, though. Hunter Warner is a restricted free agent at the moment. He's not been re-signed. He was a right shot defenseman in the AHL. Maybe they let him go and have Louis Belpedio play on the correct side, the right side, but the correct side also. Louis Belpedio is still eligible for, he's in arbitration still at this stage. It's August 3rd, and we haven't done anything with Louis Belpedio, so that scares me a little bit. Arbitration eligible at the moment, and no contract still for Louis Belpedio on August 3rd. That's what I'm doing this on a Saturday morning here. Just like the old days, Saturday morning, Brave the Wild. Louis Belpedio still sitting there, and of course, Kevin Fiala and Yul Arsenac, restricted free agents, no contract signed yet. I didn't even mention this, but most of you know it already. I'll say it anyway for those of you that may forgot or whatever. Tom Curvers is the acting general manager who's also recovering from cancer, going through chemotherapy and all that, so that's a bummer. Hopefully Tom Curvers is kept on in the organization, bringing in somebody who is, not only good at what he does, but he's respectable. This and that. He's respectful of others and a good guy and obviously good at his job, this and that. Another final thing of note that I think is encouraging and helpful compared to the last couple of free GM hires by Greg Leopold. Of course, again, Fletcher lasted a long time. He did a good job for the most part. I think he was decent at drafting. He was bad at trades and okay at free agency. Average at free agency. Mike Modano will be in the room when these interviews are conducted. That's good. Mike Modano. So you talk about Mike Modano. He's not going to join the hockey ops at the moment. He might become a VP of hockey ops or something at some point. I wouldn't be too surprised where he could be a help to the general manager someday. But as a business advisor, well, guess what? The business advisor is going to be in the room helping with the interviews, the interviewing process. You get a true hockey guy, who's a 20-year hockey guy, and Mike Modano. That's where it's a positive having him on the business side of things, because even though he's not on the hockey side, he's still going to be a part of something major here in the hiring of a general manager. So that's kind of cool. That provides that's a very nice benefit for the Minnesota Wild, having Mike Modano already as a business advisor for the Minnesota Wild. And I would not be surprised if someday he does come into the hockey operations. He will not be the general manager. He will not be the president of hockey, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's the VP in the next year or two, depending on maybe what the next general manager wants. Maybe he wants him on as that, and he recommends that to Craig Leopold. So until that day comes, I guess we're going to step away for now. And upon the hiring of the next general manager of your Minnesota Wild, we will have the next Brave the Wild show. That will be the next thing. And, I can't imagine anything else unless Zach Parise's traded. That was the other thing I left out. Zach Parise was so frustrated with the situation with Fenton, he was quietly requesting a trade, which might have been the other one of 9,000, one of the other 1,000 cuts. That was probably one of the deeper ones. That was the death of Paul Fenton. I didn't even get to that. Isn't that crazy? But it's, it's probably because the odds of Parise getting traded are like one in what, you know what I mean? Other than for like hardly anything, because they don't, they're taking on a huge contract, and I don't know. And if he ends up retiring early, us and them get punished heavily by the CBA. Heavily, massive salary cap issues will take over and screw up both franchises for many years. Same with Ryan Suter. Stupid ass contracts. Why couldn't Fletcher sign them for 7 years or something? 8. Why did it have to be 13 flipping years? I don't know, man. I don't know. Okay, with that, I'm going to be quiet now, and we will come back to talk about the next general manager of the Minnesota Wild, and, discuss what direction we're going at that point. Until then, take care and stay cool, because it's still pretty warm out there.